Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our VTLA session for first and second year superintendents on strategic planning and coherence. Glad to have you this morning. We're going to get started because we have a lot of content for today, and I want to make sure we get everything in for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. First, a special message from Dr. John Gordon in Suffolk.
Dr. John B. Gordon III, proud division superintendent of Suffolk Public Schools. And the one piece of advice I would give a first year superintendent is to get out and meet the major players in your community, the who's who, the ones that can help you to spread your message, but also can help you to build some strong partnerships that can make your school year and you and your role successful.
So there's some advice for first year superintendents, our new superintendents from John Gordon. Okay, so we're going to get started, but while we're going starting our work, I want you in the chat to introduce yourself using three emojis. And so for me, there's my example. I have a beagle, I have a Saint Bernard, and I like to kayak, right? So three things about you. If you can't figure out how to do emojis, maybe just put three things about yourself in chat. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and do that. We're gonna get started. For today's session, we're going to start with hot topics. We are very thankful for our VTLA sponsors, Participate Learning. We have Monica with us today. K-12 Coalition, we have Mo with us today, and ALP, we have Gaynell. They're going to lead those hot topic discussions. There are three topics. You all came up with Gen AI, so that's one. The second topic I came up with is how you can communicate your accountability results that are getting ready to come out with all the different changes. You can talk about how you're going to communicate those because I believe information should be coming in SSWS if it hasn't already. And then beginning of October, all that information will go public. So what is your plan to communicate that? And the third group is the wild card with Gaynell. So if you don't want to talk about communicating your accountability results or you don't want to talk about AI, go to that group. Then we're going to have our real talk with our four experts. We have Dr. Kevin Kastner from the Cambridge Services and former superintendent of Albemarle with us. He is a leading expert in strategic planning. He's going to provide you some overview. We have Dr. Clint Mitchell from Spotsylvania. We have Dr. Rick Bowling from Clark, and we have Dr. Herb Monroe from Surrey. They're going to provide you examples and advice on strategic planning and coherence. And between those two, in the middle part of that, we're going to break into action planning circles. So you need to be thinking about as you're listening and learning is where is your division? Because you're going to go into the group that pertains to you. Do you have no plan in your division, no strategic plan? Do you have an existing plan, but it's not aligned to priorities? Are you in a mid part of your plan, mid strategic plan, or are you launching a new plan or recently new plan? So be thinking about those because you'll get to join the group that you want. And then we're going to wrap up with what your hot topics may be for next year. Not next year, next session, which is October 9th on budgeting. And then we'll gear up for our next session. So, okay, this is time for hot topics. Executive coaches, you jump into a group too. Monica, Mo, and Gaynell are going to use the protocol Explore, Expand, Extend. Again, group one is going to be generative AI with Mo. Group two is going to be communicating accountability results with Monica. And three is going to be the wild card with Gaynell. Now, I will say here, this slide deck is in the VTLA resource library, and there is a link right here at the bottom for AI. It has a link at the very bottom to all the work that was done with the AI year of learning. Last year we did with VAS and ALP. But on top of that are all the recent policy revisions that school divisions have done based on AI that you might want to look at. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good discussion. Now we're going to turn to why you're here today, strategic planning and coherence. And I'll just refer you back to the Navigator on September 1st. It talks all about strategic planning key parts. It gives you lots of examples. It's in the VTLA resource library. If you can't find it in your email, it's also on our website under VTLA. You see Dr. Cotton here, Jared there with their strategic plan called Empower, our 2020 Empower 2030, showing off his thing, his strategic plan. So we're going to get down to it now. We're going to have with a real talk with two of our experts, but we're going to start with Dr. Kevin Kastner from of Cambridge Services, and again, former superintendent of Albemarle.
Since being a superintendent in Albemarle, I've been involved with becoming president of Cambridge, involved with over 50 strategic plans in Virginia and across the country, and also with BWP. A lot of my work is with Dr. Wayne Harris. First slide, please. The whole issue when you're getting into strategic planning, and I think we all would agree, it's a best practice, particularly when you're getting into an entry into a system. And it's about the why. It's trying to engage your community in meaningful ways. It's trying to build confidence and trust. It's also creating a shared vision, even on a good district, that you're still, when you got the job, you still were talking with the board about moving forward. And it's also talking about looking at your programs and see what's working and what's not working, how the plan is going to be the umbrella on how you spend your money, and having some courage to perhaps abandon some different practices. So when you get into the why, another reason, if we go to the next slide, please, you're talking about, and we talked about this morning, the world's different. It isn't just after COVID. It's everything that technology is influencing with AI and all the different nuances that we are going to have to help our students to better be successful in the world they're going to live in. So a lot of things has changed. The other thing that happens, we have growing demographics that are changing. We have societal changes, and we're dealing with a lot of that and a lot of the issues that's happening with your school boards and also the state government. And then you add on new leadership. So all of this creates a great method for bringing a lot of this together in a way that's collaborative and involves internal and external stakeholders. Next slide, please. Give it a click, will you please? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep clicking, will you please? Just go ahead and click it all. When you
Okay.
look at where the X is, in the district you're in, the momentum you have, and most of you are in great systems, but the momentum is going to continue right where you are. But as you became a superintendent, the whole issue wasn't to continue to be status quo. When you're talking about strategic planning, it's talking about working with all of the people in your community about aspirations for your students, going beyond where you currently are. And when you were chosen as superintendent, they talked about strengths and they talked about challenges. A lot of that being achievement gaps, a lot of it meeting the needs of all students. So by having a way to work with respective representative groups to find out what the aspirations are, your strategic plan really becomes about identifying those and then finding a means or a roadmap to see how you're going to close the gap and how you're going to monitor your continuing practice. So if you want to look at an overview for strategic plan, this slide will also talk, if you hit one more slide, please, Amy, they'll also talk, there is a need for strategic abandonment and some of those discussions that will come up. You don't have them normally come up because you won't have that whole array of different people, your parents, your internal people, all of them talking about the same issues at the same time. That's what strategic plan brings. It brings into a community of people and learners and students that will work towards trying to find where the district wants to move forward. Next slide, please. The what process starts out with establishing readiness and figuring out who's going to be participating in the strategic plan and trying in a transparent way using your websites and everything to see how you're going to engage the members of the community and see how many different people that we can get involved, and working with the superintendent and the board and your staff in doing that. The second stage is actually the design of the plan. And in the design of the plan, the type of work that you'll do with the group that has been chosen and gets to the point of developing the plan itself in a transparent draft way and going through something that's going to take probably over 6 months. And it goes from not just developing the plan, is then bringing in additional groups of people to develop action plans to create the roadmap of how the plan is going to be implemented. And the most important part of this section is actually getting into the fact of research and development. And that's where I'm pretty excited with some of the things I've heard Clint talk about, is how he can, when you're getting into the implementation of the plan, you're going to continue to look at ideas that are going to help you move it forward to the direction you're trying to have in the objectives and the strategies of the plan. Then it's the following year when you actually get into implementation. So you're really setting the table in that first year, and then you're going to be organizing it for the implementation and assigning the leaders in the system that are going to help move towards organizing to action and continuing momentum, and then finding a way to have accountability to note how you're going to note the progress. Next slide, please. In the plan itself, you're going to have beliefs, parameters, missions, objectives, a vision, strategies, and that whole yellow area is involving a whole different group of people that would be involved in your action planning. So it's the third phase that actually goes into the next year. Next slide, please. So when you're looking at this, look at the type of engagement you're going to have. And remember, we don't have to pay these people. These people are coming here for the goodwill of trying to work with the system for the children. And so when you look at the ability to bring in several hundred people, you're talking about 2,000 hours. You don't have this type of opportunity. And so it's a great thing to take advantage of. And my sense is it's the right thing to do right in that first year, because that's when you're working towards your momentum to work with the board towards moving forward. I'd like to stop right now, and I'd like to turn it over to Clint, but you see the overview that I've tried to share with you.
Thank you,
All right.
Dr. Kastner. So Clint, you're up again.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So before we even started to think about our strategic plan, one of the things I wanted to do, and we did work with Dr. Kastner and Dr. Harris on this process, is I wanted to bring the that I collected from our 90-day plan listening sessions. I had a chance to do about 8 listening sessions in my district. So we took that data and we brought it to the process. Next slide. So once we took all of that data, and we went ahead and we triangulate that data, we're talking about 8, 9 listening sessions, probably about 15 pages of notes. And how do you decipher what's important? So we use generative AI tool to do that. And then that led us to the synthesis that you see on the screen. Next slide. And then what I did was I developed, again, through generative AI tools, developed this 90-day executive summary to the board. And also with that, I built in, using generative AI tools, Notebook LM, a podcast that would go with that executive summary for the board and for the community. Next slide, please. So then we start getting to strategic planning. So before we got to even talking about strategic plan, I wanted to go back and say, hey, I have all this data I collected. What am I going to do with it? Besides just giving it to the board and an executive summary. I wanted that to be part of our strategic plan because it was the community's voice during those sessions. So as you can see, we had a timeline, and it was a pretty robust timeline because I wanted this plan done by May, so that I was for convocation. Next slide, please. So again, Dr. Kastner just talked about these 3 phases. Next slide, I'm not going to touch on it. So what you see on this slide here is our invitation for what we call our community summit. And so we invited members of the community to be part of that process. And the people who came to the summit are the people we selected to be part of the process, from business owners to business developers, board of supervisors, school board members, family advocates, students, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So then from there, our plan really comprised the main team, comprised about 27 students, parents, community members. And we had a kickoff in January with Cambridge. And then we came back on January 8th and 9th and May to really finish the plan. So we really knocked this out in like really 4 full day sessions. And then in between that, we had our action teams doing some work. So we developed our mission, vision, beliefs, objective, and strategies. Next slide, please. So then again, overall in phase 2, you had the 27. We have an additional 94 parents, teachers, staff, etc., at the kickoff meeting with Cambridge. And we had 5 action teams between February, March, and April. And their job was to basically develop those action plans that Dr. Kastner talked about. Next slide. So from there, as you could see, we have some pictures here. We talk about our aspirations. We talked about we did a strategy analysis. We did the informational gathering. We moved into action. We wrote action plans, and we talked about what we call our cost benefits analysis and what is it going to cost us to really implement this plan. Next slide. So then from there, we developed a new vision, a new mission. And what I did was I have 3 advisory councils. I meet with them every other month because it's a pretty robust group. I have 2 students from each high school and from each middle school. I meet with them on a monthly basis. I also have every parent and every PTA across the school district. They play the role. And I have a teacher, 2 teachers from every school across our 29 schools in the district, and they play the role in that process. So what we did there is we did the vision mission. I took that work from them, took to the core team as they were developing our vision and mission. And to be honest with you, what they developed through the advisory council with the students actually became the roadmap for our vision and mission. Next slide. So then, of course, we did our presentations. We had several. March, the co-leads for each of the 5 action teams presented. And then on May 12th, we presented to the school board. And again, it is important that the board members play a role in the process. I had 2 board members who sat on it. However, we did our presentation for the entire board. You cannot invite all board members, but it's good to have 1 or 2 to be part of the process. And then what I did with my board members is at each of the monthly meetings in between the preparation of the strategic plan, they had to present to the entire board and the public the growth and steps we were taking along the way. Next slide. So then, of course, as you can see, Dr. Harrison there tells you how big we were as a group. Next slide. And I'm going to talk about next steps. So again, 5 months, 158 people, over 190 hours involved in that plan. And that does not even include research development, KPIs, theories of actions. Next slide. So this is the lovely team, very diverse team, as you could see in our district. I will tell you, I had a board member who insisted that she picked somebody from her district to be on it, and we pushed back a lot on that. So sometimes you're gonna have board members bringing their agenda to the process, so be mindful of that. Next slide. So then we develop our strategic plan draft, and this is what Dr. Kastner and Dr. Harris put together. But again, once we get this draft, we had a dedicated website. Every single update, every meeting, the next day we posted it for the public, and we put a link out so people can see really in time what we were doing. Next slide. So now we get again to phase 3, which is really the implementation process. So once we finish that, all of that work between June and August, in May, we did all of the action team plan review. Next slide. And then we get to the final product. And this final product, I'm going to show you in a little bit, is something that we did. Well, no, you're good. You're good. The final product that you will see here is what we call Future Ready 2030. We partner with the Donovan Group for the design of the plan. We did a complete new branding in our school district, new logos, everything. And the Donovan Group was really amazing. We pushed them a lot in a short period of time to get this ready. So Amy, flip so they could see a little bit. So as you could see, give you a little bit, we have a table of contents. Just kind of flip real quickly, give you some ideas. We have at a glance, we have our Gen AI initiative, because that is a big thing for us in our district. It kind of aligns what we're doing and why. It talk about our 4 E's. We've been doing 4 E's before Video E came with 3 E's this past year. As you could see, the big E that's missing is engage. Big thing we talk about is what I call core 3/3, which is this idea of getting 3 goals in the strategic plan done over the course of 3 years or objectives. In a 5-year period, you could do 15 out of the 25. So we keep it alive. Next slide, just keep flipping a little bit. You will see each objective. Hold on right there for a little bit. Go back one more. You will see each pillar has a theory of action, which then goes with strategies, and the KPIs are embedded as part of that. So we tell the public, here's how we're going to measure our plan. You could skip all the way through, Amy, if you want. Just keep going a little bit. We'll stop right here for a little bit. Go back one more. I just wanted to highlight the fact that we wanted to put a piece in here around how we deal with safety and security, our partnership with the sheriff department, that kind of gives you a little bit of that. Next one. Next one. One of the things I'm excited about is pillar number 3 around joy, health, and wellness. We use the word joy because we want to make sure that our school district is a place where kids are learning, but they're also having a good time. So that's why when the committee came back with health and wellness, I pushed a little bit, and the word joy became part of the process. Flip a little bit, Amy. One more time. And let's go to the end a little bit, a couple more. 2 more. All right. And then so now we get to the end, and give me one more, Amy. So again, family engagement, I want to talk about that. That was a big piece for us. And really, you'll see in there, I am pushing all of our principals to have action team for partnerships at every school, similar to what I do with our students, our teachers. They have to take the same process and embed that in their school so the stakeholders have a voice. Flip one more time, Amy. All right, go ahead. Okay. And let's get to the end. So then at the back of it here, this is critical. One of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight not just the strategic plan team, but I wanted to highlight every individual that played a role in the process. So on the right side, those are all of the names of the people that played a role in the process. And one more. And I think that takes us to the end. And Amy, let's go back to the slide deck real quick. So now the question becomes the now what, right? So what I'm going to do with the now what is at the VAST conference in the fall, I'm going to do my Ignite session on the now what of the strategic plan. And what I did this summer was I built a customized GPT through Gen AI tools. And then what happened with that tool is it's going to allow every staff member in our district to create their SMART goals that is aligned to that strategic plan using a 10-step prompt process. And I will show that at the fall conference. I know today was short, and going to give you a little bit of a teaser about it. And I think that is my piece, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you. You can see what
I went fast. I went fast.
A great process, but also a wonderful product. With that, I forget what kind of document that is. It's a flip.
They call it a flip share. Flip share.
Yes.
So instead of doing the traditional book, we did a flip share with the Donovan group, so people can flip through it. And it's on our website in English and Spanish. And my next thing I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take the entire strategic plan, develop a notebook LM for the strategic plan. So if people don't want to read it, they could listen to a 5, a 10, or 20-minute podcast that tells you what the strategic plan is all about.
Okay, so
using Gen AI tools.
Right. So I mean, there's amazing things going on there in your division, Clinton. Thank you for your leadership there. So when you heard from Dr. Kastner, who gave you the overview of the strategic plan, who also Clint used in Spotsylvania to lay the groundwork and get the process going. So you're going to hear from 2 more superintendents in a minute, but we're going to now go into action planning circles, and this is where you're going to decide. You're going to join the group that is where your division is. So you're either going to go to group 1 where there's no plan, are it's just in the and when you go see you'll see the group is titled no plan, or you have a really outdated plan, and you're gonna be with Dr. Rick Bowling for that. Or you're going to go to group two, which is existing plan, but it's not aligned or it needs to be refreshed. And that's with Herb Monroe. Third group is your mid-plan implementation. You're in the middle of implementing one, and that's with Dr. Kastner. And then group four is you've recently launched or you're near launch, you're rolling a new plan just like Clint's doing. You'll be with Clint. So I'm going to open up the groups and you need to pick one of those and join that group. And Cindy will help you. I'm going to go into the group with Dr. Kastner so I can help with him with the slides. So Cindy will help you get to the group if you can't get to it. Just be patient, okay? And we're going to have 15 minutes in these groups. I'm opening up the rooms now. Well, I hope everyone had a great discussion and time to talk about where you are in your plan and get some advice or strategies of where to go forward. Now we're going to hear from two more superintendents about their strategic planning process that they've done. And we're going to start with Dr. Rick Boland from Clark.
Thank you. And a little background on myself. I am 26 years into Virginia public education and spent a lot of my time in Wise County, Virginia, which is where I'm originally from. Learned a lot, I think, about strategic planning and academic learning outcomes and working on student learning outcomes there. Was the superintendent in Bath County Public Schools and am currently the superintendent in Clark County Public Schools. In each of these divisions, I've worked on the strategic planning committee and developed that. Now, one thing I would say about coming to a division and having a plan that's really outdated or not having one, it doesn't mean that you can't do wonderful things from the beginning. And there's some strategies you can put in place for that. And in some ways, I kind of looked at it as having a gift to me of not having a strategic plan or having one outdated because it made the plan. I became an integral part of developing a plan. So it was clearly something that I believed in and wanted to carry forward. So I think that you can kind of look at that as being something that you can build upon, and it makes the strategic planning process that you're going to have more investment in it. All right, if we'll go to the next slide. All right, when there is no plan currently in place, I think some things that you need to start by doing is you've got to consider where you're at the start. So you need to look at baseline data. And one thing that I always tell people is you can look at the current state of the 1 year piece, but I do believe that data is much more impactful if you look at a 3 year or 5 year trend. That way you're not looking towards something that's an outlier. And early on, before you even start the planning process, I did data reviews with our school board and our internal stakeholders, being our leadership team, our principals, did listening sessions in each of the schools as I was developing the strategic plan. And we also presented our baseline data to the board in regular monthly board meetings. Now, I will tell you that when I was in Wise County, I was a part of the strategic planning team there. And if you make it a living document, and I think the key there, it has to be something that you truly believe in, it'll be much more useful. What we did was we aligned our goals, like the strategic planning goals were there. The superintendent for their evaluation goals aligned them to the strategic planning goals, almost that they were almost copied and pasted. And then the director's goals aligned, the principal's goals aligned, and then it went down to the teacher level. So if everybody's working toward one common set of goals, it has more meaning to it. Now, I did monthly grade level meetings there instead of doing faculty meetings. So I would spend a whole day or a day and a half in meetings each month, going each grade level. And we were PK through 8 at my last school. So I would talk to the teachers of each grade level. And having that time when there's only 4 or 5, we would pull out the county strategic plan and our school comprehensive improvement plan. And we would kind of phrase our conversations on how are we working to meet these goals. Now, I was extremely proud of the time that I was there, and it was not about me, it was about a team effort, and we all worked together. But both at St. Paul and later at JW, both of those schools were named blue ribbon schools during that time of us working together, and JW was a National Title I distinguished school. There were 63 in the nation the year that it got it. So I do believe that strategic planning, if you believe in it and you're working towards what can be better for kids, it's really important. Now, when I came to Bath, it maybe a couple weeks into the job, I realized that our strategic plan um, was probably nearly a decade out of date. And even though it is reinforced in Virginia code that you do a strategic plan, every school division has an active one and it's done every 5 years. It's one of those pieces I don't think the world ends if you have one that, is not currently active and you just start working toward it. Now, knowing that the strategic plan would be a much more extensive process, what I started with was making sure that our division-wide improvement plan and our individual school improvement plans at the beginning of that year were really relevant and purposeful, that I could use my 90-day entry plan and use the overall division improvement plan and the school improvement plans to get work started early on as we were thinking about doing a new strategic plan. Um, when you start looking at promoting success, I think it's important that you are transparent. I've always said create your brand and share your successes outward, but also you need to own data of places that you can grow. And I think that buys a lot of community support when you say, well, this is an area that we need to grow on, and you present that to your board. Uh, One thing that I've had both in Clark and now in Bath, in Bath and now in Clark, is we're getting ready to do a strategic plan. Is it's been a $0 budget for the strategic plan, which is, I think, a lot of things that a lot of districts deal with, which are different. So both when I was there and what's going to be here, the strategic plan is going to be what I can do myself and what I can type up with the team. It's always going to be a team effort, but I mean, producing and publishing and getting the work done is going to be an internal piece. Now, I would say consider a wide-scale, unbiased climate and leadership survey. This is the one thing that I paid money for in doing the Bath plan. Everything else was no cost. I did move it from another line item to get this done, and it wasn't all that expensive, but I wanted to make sure I was getting sound data. We did a strategic plan survey that we sent out to community members, parents, students, and that was an internal piece. And when you're doing a wider scale to make sure that everybody's not replicating, it's harder to do. So we use that through one lens, but I truly wanted to see how our employees, every staff member felt about leadership in our division and how they felt about whether we were on track or not. And I was in a unique situation there in Bath. Our director of technology, and it's not saying anything would be wrong or not, but I wanted to eliminate any potential for bias, was married to our special ed director, and the local reporter was their son. So I wanted to really make sure that there was no question that the survey was valid. So the company that I came up with was School Perceptions, and I'm just not saying that you have to go that route, but it was a really wonderful relationship for us. The CEO was a former superintendent who develops leadership and school climate surveys in his retirement and has this company. It was really interesting to me because they're nationwide, so you can get some norm nationwide results on how academic learning is going and leadership outcomes. And you can customize the surveys too. So we worked over several months to do that. The piece that was really important was you can't create extra Google emails or things like that and do it. Each employee we had got a unique code through our email, but that code could only be used one time. And even the CEO of the company didn't know who had used it and who hadn't. It can only be used one time. And their internal metrics would say this percent of your leadership has taken the survey, this percent of your teachers have taken the survey, this percent of your staff, but it wasn't traceable back to an individual person. And each person was only allowed to respond one time, which was incredibly important to me. And to show a lack of bias too, they actually presented at our school board meeting the results of our leadership survey climate, and culture survey that we then launched into the strategic plan. So I was a really big proponent of using that survey company. All right, we'll go to the next slide now. This is what I was sharing about school perceptions. And I think it was really important because it made it seem like it was really that they were contributing to a survey that they could trust the results. And we shared all about how the protective parameters were on it. So we got a lot more broad aspect of our employees to take that survey, which helped us. And then I said, okay, this is the only part that I'm going to spend money for. Everything else we'll work internally and do. And I've always made this part of embrace the data and don't make excuses along the way. So if we could go to the next slide now. As far as the reasons why I think strategic planning is important, education in Virginia's and across the country is changing daily at this point. AI has been mentioned today. It's something I believe we're going to have to embrace, and all districts are going to have to find ways to work through that process. It's also going to affect all colleges. And I think different colleges are in different places. Community needs are changing, and the education that we provide needs to prepare kids to enter the workforce, go on to college or military, but it has to be something that meets the needs of your community. And there's different employers and different stakeholders in each community. Also, when you're doing a strategic plan, we know that enrollment trends are, important considerations across divisions in the Commonwealth. Budget pressures are there. Having something embedded in your strategic plan allows you to remind your school board and community that this was a priority that we decided upon, and this is something that we need to invest in. Also, I believe that increasing academic rigor and achievement, growth of our students is going to be one thing that we all can agree on. And the strategic plan is going to help us meet the needs of the students within our community. So if we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the early components of looking at strategic planning to me is to build a strategic planning committee that represents the community. And some things that I looked at when I built the strategic planning committee was division leadership. We need to also include leadership from the school level. It's imperative that you have school board members be a part of that strategic planning committee, but also include board of supervisors members because they're going to have a lot of control of the purse there, and you want to have them invested in what you're doing. Teachers, the people on the front lines, important to include perspective from parents and students, but also look at the businesses and the different industry that are in your school district and include them within the group. Also, community members and community groups, they give so much, and some of those are more like resourceful groups that are not necessarily tied to business, but they do a lot for your school system. So you need to leverage involving them in that committee. And along the way, we need to invite and embrace stakeholder feedback and collaboration, and always try to have points in there for feedback and collaboration. Now, one of the pieces I believe that's incredibly important as you develop a strategic plan is early on developing a timeline. And I think that's a pitfall if you don't have a very deliberate timeline early on, because if you just put rough timelines in or areas, you're going to be able to get flexible and things are going to get busy and it may not get done. And I've been fortunate to follow wonderful people. So one of the things that I noticed in Bath, and I think it was done with the greatest of intentions, in between the time of the last one expiring and me taking over, there was an attempt to start a new strategic plan, but all they got to was developing the vision piece. And I think had everything been laid out that this is going to happen on this date, and this date, it would have been much more likely to come to fruition. I would suggest that maybe working backwards and saying this is the end goal date that I want to have an approved strategic plan done, and then go backwards on getting a real deliberate timeline on when you're going to work through those pieces. If we can go on to the next slide there.
Mhm. Want the next one?
Yes,
Elements to
please.
include. Okay.
Huh?
Elements to include or the next one?
We can go. Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. Let's do this one here. And I was getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I do think the school improvement plans are comprehensive and can serve a division if they have an outdated or a non-existing plan. Not that it's the ideal way to go forward, but I think the community rallied together there in Bath. And 1 year before our strategic plan was actually developed, we had the highest increase in reading success in the state and got recognized and had the second highest overall increase across all academic areas. Now, everybody worked together to get that, but I don't want you to think the absence of a strategic plan means you can't be working on goals along the way. I shared earlier that a lot of divisions are having superintendents do entry plans, a 90-day plan that can really serve as the base while you work. I would share that we need to represent each school equally and hold community meetings in the schools. I know some of you are much larger, so you may have to do those regionally instead. But it is important that each school be included. And where I've been in smaller divisions, I've done at least one of the committee meetings in each of the schools themselves, which is, I think, helped to try to buy in some buy-in. Now, one thing that's really important to me, we of course all have the mission and vision, but also I think we brand different things of these with different names, but I call mine the guiding principles and core values. Those are the non-negotiables. We've talked about the timeline, but we led those to be pillars that were going to hold us up. We reflected on baseline data. And I think you have to keep your goals to a manageable, maybe 3 or 5, because if you have a ton of goals, you're not really going to be able to give all of them due focus. Now, you have to have it become a living document. So when you're doing leadership meetings, I think referencing back to it, having the principals align their their school improvement plans to the strategic plan is important. And you have to provide regular formative feedbacks to the school and community. Now, I wanted it to be something living, so what I did was I picked 2 months out of the year each year during the 5 years, that as a minimum there would be 10 times when the strategic planning committee was brought back together to say, are these goals still what we want to be working with? Do we need to revise them a little bit or the strategies? And after each of those, they would be represented to the school board as a data up, like a formative update on the data of how we were progressing. Now, a lot of you probably use board docs. So what I did was I actually just went in a couple years and said, and I make notes to myself in board docs all the time. I picked the months and said, you need to do a strategic planning update at this board meeting. And it kind of helped me. All right, we can go on to the next slide there. I've talked a lot about this, about vertical alignment. Everything needs to be aligned from teacher goals to principal goals to division goals, department, superintendent, and school improvement. If we're all working toward one common vision and set of goals, we're actually going to be able to get things done in a positive way. I would also encourage you to keep language stakeholder friendly and concise. One thing I did in our strategic plan when I was there in Bath is I did an acronym guide page because one of the parents brought it up and I thought it was really great. Well, in board meetings and in talking, you all use a lot of acronyms. I really tried to be intentional, not use them as much afterwards, but I made a listing of anything that's used in that plan that anybody would know where that came from. And like I said, we really do need to have an accountability of where progress will be made and how it's going to be monitored. All right, we'll go on to the next slide. All right, the only part here I'm going to link out to would be if you'll go to our strategic plan. At the link
I
there
am.
at the
Yeah, just
bottom.
I got to stop sharing and share again.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't just open up. Here we go. There we go.
You can see ours is quite simplistic, but I think it has a lot of purpose to it. And I'm going to, as we scroll through, point out some things to you. There's the acronym guide piece, and we can keep going there. That was just a listing of profiles. We updated our organizational chart of who would report to who during the process. And you can see that next page there was our strategic planning team. We did a baseline review of where we were and the division profile. So if we can keep going there, we rewrote a new mission and vision, guiding principles, and that's that timeline piece there that I was sharing that is very specific. Now, if we'll stop here on this next page up, sorry. The leadership survey results. When we did that school perception survey, our three highest areas, and I thought we need to make sure that we protect that, was I am recognized when I do a good job. So recognition, they felt like we were doing a really good job with that, was enforced in that survey. The other two highest areas where I feel supported by my supervisor or administrator when I make a decision, and they felt like the division's discipline practices and policies were effective. Areas of improvement, our parents and community support the school district. I think that one may have come more from community. One of the things you're always struggling there, Bath is a .80 LCI district, so finances are always kind of a area of question because 80% of the money is coming from the locality. So you're facing a lot of budget cuts. And you can see there were some concerns about the technology piece there. The stakeholder feedback actually came from our community survey that we did. And then you can keep going on down there to see like our goals and our strategies. But toward the end of it is actually the results of that survey we did that I wanted you all to be able to see. If you'll stop right there, you can see that is the school perceptions overview survey that we got back. I only shared it with us internally in leadership because this can be a really stretch of growth, and people have to be willing. You're going to get some good and some bad out of some things like this, but you have to be open to feedback. And one of the things, when you look at some of our overall successes there, they'll highlight, those are the page there about the individual schools. If you'll go on just a few more pages up there, tell you when to stop on okay, I think that right there, if we'll stop right there, you can see that the division staff thought that Bath at the beginning of the survey was the 3.68 out of 5, which is the 62nd percentile in the nation because this was a nationwide survey. Staff experience was a 3.91 at the 74th percentile in the nation. I thought that was some good piece to look at. If we'll go on to the next page there, or the next one down, and here's where our highest areas were. I feel supported by my administration supervisor was at the 89th percentile in the nation of the ones that had taken this survey. Our school's student discipline practices and policies are effective was the 84th percentile. All right, if we'll go down to the next page, it'll show some places for that we were okay, and it kind of goes then by each individual area. And there's one right here where it'll show our weakness. But if you'll go down just a little bit more, and it did it by building. And if we'll stop right here, like technology, just up a little bit, I broke it down to each leadership area we did the customization of the survey. And technology and special ed were our lower areas, which I thought may be the case because I thought that was places we needed to work on. But this gave me some really good unbiased data of where that we could actually start to focus with. If you'll scroll on to the next page there, you'll see we've got personnel department and office. I think this is one of the things, if you'll stop there, I think it's important. I wasn't going to put my staff out if I wasn't out there on the line too. So we did myself and my office there. And we can go ahead and go out of the survey now there. But I think it's important to note that I only did the number part, but we actually got information that was actual comments on each of those departments. And I didn't want to redact a lot of names, so we shared those internally. But you have to work to build a climate and culture that people are willing to accept, results and say, hey, is this accurate or not, or reflect to make the school division better. But thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick. And I know we're at the 10:27 mark and we still have Herb that we want to hear from. So, Herb, we're going to bring you, thank you, Rick. We're going to bring you
Thank
up
you.
and you share what you're doing. Herb is in his second year in Surrey County.
First year.
First year.
Yes.
year.
Well,
That's
listen, Amy, I know we're almost out of time. This presentation will be shorter than me, those of you who know me. So we're gonna rock and roll. Amy, if that's okay. I just want to echo everything that Dr. Bowling said. Dr. Kastner, has a plethora of knowledge. And of course, Dr. Mitchell, I mean, that was amazing, all of the innovative things that he's doing. But I will be celebrating my first year on October 7th here
that's
as the
right. You
proud
came in mid-year.
superintendent in Surrey County. But I had the pleasure of working with Sarah Calvera for 10 years in Caroline, and she and I birthed two strategic plans together. So, all of what we've heard today is just amazing. And we actually did that work. But I just want to focus really on two key things with the remaining time. Is one, when I arrived in Surrey, they said, we don't want any city slicker from a big school division coming down here thinking us country folks don't know what we are doing. So don't come down here trying to change things. And I said, okay. But what I did realize is there was some quick wins and some pieces missing. One, Surrey had a very strong strategic plan, but they had no metric, they had no evidence and artifacts, and they didn't have any core values. So the one thing that I did is I put a title on my Look, Listen, and Learn tour, and I asked that we lean into that title as core values because core values were actually missing. So what we rebranded as our core values is it is our connection, collaboration, and communication that makes us the strong and mighty Surrey nation. So what we did was we fall on those three C's. You will see those three C's everywhere on marquees and everywhere because that is the core value by which we create a sense of team where the teamwork makes the dream work. Now, I will tell you through our leadership meeting that we had this past June, we added a fourth C, which is CARE. And CARE is an acronym for compassion, affirmation, respect, and empathy. So again, everything is aligned to the goals and the focus areas of our strategic plan. But what we're doing now is we're putting some definition and branding around it. Amy, can you go to the next slide, please? Again, I spoke to the fact that there was pieces missing, the evidence and artifacts of the great work. So as I went around with the Look, Listen, and Learn, I was learning so much that I said we need to have a brag sheet or a highlight sheet that we can distribute to all of our stakeholders and put on our website. So Amy, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So as I was doing my Look, Listen, and Learn, I actually created what I call the Cougar highlights. And what that is it's just basically 12 key things to really celebrate and that really talk about the greatness that's going on here in Surrey County. This is on our website. I keep about 20 copies with me everywhere I go. I share them at all the churches, all of the restaurants, and throughout the community. I've armed our school board with this. So when people say, why Surrey County? This is why. For example, all of our schools, well, at the time, I don't know what our new titles are, but we're fully accredited. The second bullet is our students actually can earn an associate's degree at Surrey High School. So there is a plethora of things that even though we're a small division, there's a lot of amazing things happening here that a lot of people don't even know about. Some of which I didn't even know about when I was doing my research to interview for the position. I wanted to give you guys an image of what the strategic plan looked like when I arrived. You take a look on the left, you can see there's goals like we all see in everybody's plan. There's focus areas. But what you see on the left, that was it. There was no metric, there was no evidence and artifacts. So the one thing that we built in at our summer leadership retreat this past summer is throughout basically November going into June, I started asking for departments and directors and other folks to start gathering your artifacts and evidence of every single strategy in the strategic plan. Because at leadership, I said, we're going to revise our plan, enhance our plan, and lift our plan with the evidence and artifacts of the great work so that we know that our strategic plan is a living, breathing document that we can direct our board to, we can direct our business partners to, we can direct our community stakeholders and colleges and universities to make sure that everyone knows the great things that we're doing. And for our internal stakeholders, it's a reminder to them that we're doing the right work that's aligned with our plan. So what you can see on the right is the evidence there. So those are live links to school board presentations, staff development days, press releases, um, literacy plans, local, state, and national data that is perfectly aligned and gives evidence and artifacts to all of the strategies in our strategic plan. And then we added another status column where some things are not even started yet, some things are just beginning, some things are ongoing, and some things are now achieved. Amy, you can go to the next slide. So what we're doing now is we actually go in every semester and at the end of the year and we update our evidence and artifacts in our plan. And then that's a way for us to review and revise and make enhancements. And we can also see what do we need to add new. I will tell you, we added a new initiative called Aim High. Why did we add that? Because the state has changed the targets. So our Aim High initiative that we are building into our plan now is all of the kids that always pass the SOLs. We are creating a very coachable way and very non intrusive way for kids who always passed and now pass advance. And we're doing things to help our kids who've always passed advance. Of course, kids who never pass, we're helping them to pass. And some of our kids that have been passing advance, we now say go for 6. And that means, we're going to help some of our kids max out and get a perfect 600. So now our theme for this year is aim high. Everything we do is with that theme of aiming high. And now we've built that into our strategic plan. The last thing I'm going to share because of time is that people have to see it, people have to feel it, people have to hear it, because what you want is you want emotional engagement. And that engagement has to come from students, staff, employees, and everyone. So as you can see, I have these publications and these graphic organizers. You can stop right there, Amy. Those graphic organizers are actually created by students. You like in a small school division, we don't have a PR person. I know Mrs. Ote, Dr. Ote down in Charles City said whoever has their cell phone charged is the PR person that takes all the pictures and writes the articles. Well, that's the way it is here in Surrey. So I now have created a work-based learning program where our students actually are getting paid to take pictures at events and to write articles. So I have three students who are our PR team for Surrey County, and they create all of the documents you are seeing here in the next few slides. Because what we do, and I saw Clint had this in his plan, is not only do you have the plan, not only do you have the metric, but you also have the pictures. As we know, pictures, are worth 1,000 words because your pictures help you tell your story as well. Amy, you can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to show you those pictures and those articles that we put on our website. We have an app called Aptigee where it's press releases that, kids can get in there. It's vetted by our photography teacher at the high school. Then it goes to our chief academic officer. When I have time, I take a peek at it too. And boom, we click it and it goes live. It goes to our website, it goes to Facebook, social media, so forth and so on, because we want to keep getting the positivity out, but we also make sure that everything we put out is aligned to our strategic plan and we label it as such. Amy, you can go to the next slide. Again, just more evidence and artifacts of things we do at our school board meetings around our strategic plan. Next slide. Yep, next slide. And then again, we update our strategic plan every semester now at the end of the year, and we always talk about what does our future vision now need to look like based on the evidence and artifacts that we now have embedded into our strategic plan, and it drives the work that we do every day. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Herb. I do love, and thank you all for staying over time. I know we were supposed to end at 10:30, but we have such a wealth of information here. And Herb, that I love that you if you revisit the plan to collect artifacts to attach to it, you're keeping that strategic plan alive, right? So I love that. And I'm not going to read these slides to you. This slide deck is in the VTLA resource library, but here are some of the standards in the superintendent evaluation form that strategic planning coherence relates to. On this slide, you'll find different artifacts that you could be using when you're talking about your evaluation with your school board. Your executive coaches should be using these prompts with you this month to talk about strategic planning. There's the link again to the VTLA resource library. I'm interested in, the hot topics for this month was AI and communicating your accountability results. If you could put in chat or use this QR code to please let me know for October 9th, when we're having the budget and finance virtual session. But what are some hot topic conversations you'd like to have at the beginning? I feel like we're rushing our experts, and I'm sorry about that. But I also think it's important to have time in our sessions for y'all to talk. So put in the chat and use this link, use this QR code. And I'm just going to talk through the rest so you can still have the QR code up. So our next session is October 9th. Dr. Chip Jones, Tom Smith, and Vic Shandor and Bill Bowen from York County will be doing Budget 101 for first year superintendents. Second year superintendents will go to a breakout session with Lori Miller from Donovan Group. We'll talk about how do you communicate your budget best. And then the session after that will be in person at our fall conference, which will be on communication. And we'll see Herb again for that session. And so don't forget, we have a VTLA dinner that Sunday night at the conference. And I believe that's all the other slides that I'm not going to go through right now so you can stay on this topic. So again, thank you to our four experts, Dr. Kastner, Clint Mitchell, Rick Bowling, Herb. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. There was a wealth of information there. All this is in the resource library. Thank you for sharing your time, and thank you all for staying over a little bit to share your expertise.